the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry. We have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Welcome, everyone, to The View, Voices of Unitarian Universalism, the weekly talk show of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. At some point, we will redo our opening intro, because this is season 12 of The View. Beloveds, it is not the last 7 years anymore. It hasn't been the last 7 years for 5 whole years. So welcome. It is good to be with you. I'm the Reverend Dr. Michael Tino. I am 1/3 of the lead ministry team of your Church of the Larger Fellowship. I am coming to you from Peekskill, New York, the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples in the Hudson Valley of New York, where it is a bright and beautiful, if chilly, winter day. And the rain is on the way, so to melt all the snow. And that is what it is. DC Fortune, how are you?
I am well. Hello, everybody. I'm the Reverend DC Fortune. Pronouns he, him. I am coming to you from central Pennsylvania, along the banks of the Susquehanna River, named for the original inhabitants, the Susquehannock people. It is a bright and sunny winter-ish day. It's like 45 out there or something, but it's breezy enough that it doesn't feel quite like that. But yeah, it's a good day. It's it's not rainy and it's not snow. I'll take it. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, everyone. I'm Cristina Rivera, she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you from my ancestral homelands of Borinquen, also known as Puerto Rico. where it is.
Don't say it.
I got to.
Let us in on the warmth, Chris. Let us in on the warmth.
It's 89 degrees and it's beautiful and sunny and gorgeous. It is going to rain, if that makes you feel any better. It's going to rain in about, I don't know, an hour or so for, a couple hours. And then it'll stop raining. So there you go. I could just give you all that and
Thanks, Chris.
yeah, I'm here for you, DC. I really
No,
am.
you're not. You're way over there for me. You're way over there for me.
My home is always open for the viewers.
Right.
So
I gotta get to be a stronger swimmer. That's all.
This is that time of year when like the possibility of warmth that exists in other places gets me through
Yeah.
the winter. So like, tell me how warm it is there, please. Because
It's really. If y'all go to my Facebook page, I posted a picture last night of my husband and my service dog Coco, and they were both on our patio balcony, leaning out over the patio. Coco through her little head through the bars, and my husband obviously a little taller and leaning over, and they were looking at the sunset, and it was just so cute. So there is hope, and come on by anytime.
Mm-hmm.
someday I'll take you up on that.
Right.
So we are here today, and I'm just going to go right into introducing our guest before we do any sort of UU roundup stuff, because Kimberly is part of the UU roundup. Our guest today is the Reverend Kimberley Debus, who is an entrepreneurial minister specializing in congregational life, especially in worship, and does all sorts of other things, sabbatical ministry. I could give you the list, because he is like, all right, you know my ministry, you introduced me, then we'd be wrapping up the show. And currently studying for her Doctor of Ministry degree, which is super exciting, and author of Hold My Chalice, which is one of the reasons I invited Kimberly on, and we'll explain what Hold My Chalice is in a moment. Kimberly is also, among other dubious accomplishments, a former learning fellow of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. So CLF had a role in launching the creative and entrepreneurial ministries of
Absolutely.
this. So we're happy to have you back here on The View. We like to start with a little UU roundup,
Great.
which is what we call it, like what's going on in the world of Unitarian Universalism. Oh, we have guests here today. Oh my goodness, look at this. I just opened up the chat. Darby is here and excited for the conversation. Natalie is excited to watch today. And Nicole says, woohoo, Reverend Debus, among other things. So there we go. We have engaged viewers already. Please continue to engage with us in the chat if you're watching us live. And we will do our best to respond to you if you have questions and things. I know that one of the least exciting things happening right now in Unitarian Universalism is the annual recertification of congregational membership. It is necessary that all of our 1,000 plus congregations annually certify their membership to UUA headquarters in order to get voting delegates to the General Assembly. This year, the exciting thing that is part of the annual recertification of membership is that way down at the end, way like question number 80, there is a question about whether or not folks want to admit congregational study action issues to the agenda General Assembly. And the very first one of those, because we titled it with an A, is abolition is faith formation, which is a congregational study action issue that the Church of the Larger Fellowship has proposed. Assuming that it gets admitted to the agenda, you will hear a whole lot more on The View this spring about that congregational study action issue. But we need folks to say, yes, please put it on the agenda so that you can make a case right now. It doesn't pass it. It doesn't, just allows us to make the case at General Assembly for why it should be the thing that we study for the next 4 years. So if you have anything to do with congregational membership certification out there in VU land, just go down to question 80 or 79, or it's something ridiculous like that, and answer yes to the first one. I don't care how you vote on the other two. They're both very interesting topics as well. But please vote yes on abolitionist faith formation. Other things happening in the great world of Unitarian Universalism right now?
Well, it's 30 Days of Love.
Right.
Right in the middle of that.
30
That
days of love.
wonderful time of reflection on what does it mean to put love into the world. And I love their weekly themes. I don't remember which one this is. It's been a week. But I love the intention of thinking seriously about love and how love is at the center, and the activities and the resources that Side with Love provides. So yeah, we're partway through.
We're also partway through the search process for those who are for ministers who are looking for settled or contract ministry, and for congregations that are looking for new ministers. And I can say this week, now that my congregation knows, that I am engaged in the search process, and I am looking for a new place to be and a new place to do ministry. And I had a lot of conversations with some really cool people. So.
And we wish for good matches.
Yes.
We wish for congregations to find the ministers that will push them in all the right ways.
And we hope that the ministers find the congregations that meet their skills. Yeah.
Darby says that this week on 30 Days of Love is Trans People Are Divine.
That's it.
Which we know is true.
That's right.
Which is why it's easy for us to forget. We're like, oh, right. It's water is wet week. Okay, sure.
Exactly. I'm like, it didn't stand out.
Right? Okay, water is wet. Rah. We got it.
I am actually in the middle of cooking up what will probably be a special evening worship service, like a Vesper service of some sort, for people that our current fascist government wants to make invisible.
Okay.
Just it's still cooking.
Okay.
Still cooking in my brain. But I think there's just some power in witnessing and honoring people's lives in the light of all these forces trying to make people hide and invisible. And while none of us on this show need to be convinced that trans people are divine, there's power in a religious movement insisting on it. Right?
Yeah, we had a nice statement from Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt out of the UUA, talking about how this is a scary time, and that we remain steadfast in our support for all those who are marginalized. So it's a hell of a
And we could.
It's a hell of a time to be a Prussian. Gee whiz.
Yeah.
And we could get into
all
of the horrors that the last week has wrought in our nation and our world, thanks to the administration that was elected last November. And I am reminded, the Reverend Renoir Hamami is one of the people who reminded us of this, friend of the View and UUA staff person, that reaction and strategy are different things.
Mhm.
and that part of the goal right now is to overwhelm us with reaction, so that we burn
Yep.
ourselves out, and so that we can't strategize and
Yep.
organize.
That's right.
So we we need to be in solidarity and
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we need to be intentional about taking that time to react.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
saying don't
Yeah.
react. We're not saying don't have the feelings, because that's close to impossible, right?
Yeah.
You can't not react.
You can't not react. What we're saying is, set aside time to rage. Maybe that's during worship.
Right?
Maybe that's during your meditation. Maybe that's during a walk or a prayer, or in your car singing songs, or whatever it is. Like, be intentional about it and say, you know what, it is super fucked up out there, and maybe you need somebody to process it with. Find that person and say, can I just call you right now and just bitch? Because this is just fucked up. And I need to say that to somebody so that I can get on the other side of it, and then be able to not be reactive
Mm.
and get into strategy and get into tactic. Because, it's important to feel the feels, and also not let that be everything.
Yeah. Our colleague, the Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson, shared a really helpful strategy, which was recognizing what is the level of news intake that doesn't cause us to lash out and do ourselves and others harm. So if watching the news is too much, listen to the news. And if listening is too much, read the news. If reading the raw news is too much, read the trusted aggregators, the Heather Cox Richardsons and Rebecca Solnits of the world, the people who are, the Rachel Maddows, the people who are looking at this and saying, here's what this means, here are the context. And I'm finding that the context helps me know, helps me deal with my feelings, but know what's real in there, right? And it's it has changed everything for me when she suggested that, to really recognize that, because I can turn on the news and lose it, but if I'm just reading those things or hearing a podcast, better.
Yeah. So Nicole in the chat said, I have a hard time focusing long enough to parse which of the executive orders are smoke and mirrors, which ones will actually end lives. Kind of just thinking about them sends me over the edge. Yeah, 100%. And but by design. And the good news is, like, we don't have to do that work right the second that the executive order is sent out, right?
And we don't each have to do it alone.
And we can take our direction from the most impacted that those executive orders are aimed.
You don't have to react to everyone. There's been advice to think about the areas that are most important or crucial to you and the people you love, because somebody else is going to be dealing with something else, right? I can't put energy into the Paris Agreement because of the trans people I love. That, I know there are a bunch of people taking care of that, right? And so how do we make space for ourselves, and know that we all are paying attention as a collective?
Right.
Now I want to work some sort of a rage smash room thing into
worship.
Oh yeah.
Karen, formerly Ola Oya, now Bell, also former ordaining fellow. The Church of the Larger Fellowship did a ritual. Karen and Elizabeth Schell, who is an educator and yarn activist in Asheville, North Carolina, did a ritual together. That one of the there were stations around. This was at SUSI, the Southeast UU Summer Institute. there were stations around it, and each one was designed to get out anger and rage. One of them was a rending of cloth. So they were just pieces of fabric that had little cuts made in them to start them already, and people were encouraged to just go and tear them. And
I will never forget that.
The sound of that, the rending of cloth.
The sound, because it was an echo of shh, 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 and I was like, oh, that's the sound of rain.
What were the others, Michael?
One of them was like crumpling a paper.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But I viscerally remember the station at which we tore cloth into pieces, and then later on we took those pieces and wove them into things.
Yeah.
Right? So you can do other rituals later with the pieces, the results of your catharsis, of your anger.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. I'd have to look up my old notes from that session, but it was amazing.
It seems like a clear, if I could figure out a way to make it clear, what they call a dolly pot, which is for prospectors who get a piece of rock that has gold in it. They put it in it's just like a little metal tube with a base, and they just hit it with another chunk of metal. Bang, 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 bang. Makes a hell of a noise, but it busts up the rock so that they can extract the gold from it. But one of those with like chipped coffee cups and whatever else at the bottom. Like, I'm trying to find a way to make actual space to smash something, keeping in mind safety, and we have a carpet.
You can buy kits of those small geodes and smash those into some sort of cup, because then you have.
You still need protective eyewear.
Yeah.
Smashing. That's why tearing fabric was very safe.
Yes.
Tearing fabric did not hurt anyone. There were no flying bits of fabric.
Yeah.
That hurt anyone.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, because that's just great embodied worship too. It gives people something that they can do with their physical bodies to do stuff.
And in a rare bit of good news from our world, because I feel like someone mentioned it, Nicole mentioned it in the chat. The three fires around Los Angeles are now 95+% contained.
Oh.
They have had rain. They have had rain in the LA area.
Yeah.
And yes, there are concerns about toxic runoff and all this kind of stuff that come from rain, but rain puts out the fire, which is the immediate concern. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of us have loved ones in Los Angeles. Chris, I know that that's where you grew up. So like part of your heart lives there.
So we've been keeping track of folks, and moving folks from place to place has been a lot of mutual aid and just organizing work behind the scenes. Rents have gone up already 20% in the LA area, which is astronomical.
Against the law.
Against the law, and astronomical given what the rents already were.
They were too damn high to start off with.
Right. They were too damn high before the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's a thing. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a long lasting, blow to California. But where California goes, the rest of the country goes. Like the financial effects of California are wide-reaching. Well, the reason why we have emissions standards on our cars are from California, because California, and particularly Southern California, said, if you want to sell a car here, it has to pass these emissions standards. For years, I would take my car in every year to somewhere, a gas station or wherever it is, you could get the emissions tag, and they hook a hose to your exhaust pipe, and they rev your car, and they see what your car is putting out into the world. And if it did not meet those emissions standards, you failed, and you had to. That's the whole thing. And because of it, now the entire country and the entire US.
And I remember as a kid watching The Price is Right, and whenever they gave out a car, they had to say that it had California emissions.
Right.
As long as they were giving it away in Burbank.
Right.
They don't say that anymore because California emission standards are the national emission standards now.
Exactly.
Right? So you can't give away a new car unless it meets California emission standards.
Yeah. Nicole, smog check, baby. That's right.
I mean, we've had emission standards in New York for many years too, and they weren't quite California level.
It's one of the things that gives me hope when I think about climate change is, people are like, oh, we can't do anything. I'm like, you know what? We killed the ozone. We got rid of VOCs. I loved Aquanet as much as the next person in the 80s. But, my hair could only
preferred weapon of drag queens everywhere.
Like people still are on eBay trying to find the original Aquanet. It's not there anymore. But
oh my God,
we can do things. We can, when I was in school, I hated PE in school. I hated physical education class in school, loathed it. And when I got to middle school, you could choose which class you had PE in. And I always chose the end of the day because the likelihood that we would have a smog alert that would prevent us from exercising was higher by the end of the day. And I wouldn't have to do PE. It was ridiculous. At that point in time, I'm like, oh, I'm smart. But
tools you're given.
That was also back before the EPA was doing real things.
Yeah, and now that's not a thing. The
smog
level
alerts,
3, level 5 smog alerts that we used to have regularly as a person in my adolescence doesn't happen anymore in Los Angeles. Yes, it happens occasionally, but not with the consistency that would get a middle schooler out of physical education.
Not every day at 2:45.
I was like, I didn't have to run track today. I got to read my book inside on the bleachers. Yes, I was that much of a nerd.
Yeah. Well,
so Kimberly, we have you here in part because you have it's a Substack. Is that
yes?
Right?
Yep.
Can you explain what that is?
So we've had Medium, we've had Tumblr, we've had Blogger, we've had all of these different platforms, and Substack is kind of the new platform for bloggers, for writers, because weirdly blogging is coming back in. Substack has a particularly writer focus, so they're really supporting writers. They've made it easy to monetize, very easy to post. They're adding some new features, but it's all about how do we engage with one another and how do we get the most out of this platform. And I started reading things on there probably early 2022. So it was Danya Rutenberg, Heather Cox Richardson, Diana Butler Bass, some others. And when I was looking for where I would start this blog, I thought for a while that I might go to just find another spot on one of my websites, because I have too many. And I realized that the hoops I would have to jump through to get what I get were not worth it, because somebody else had already jumped through the hoops. All I had to do was register my name. So that's what it is. It is essentially a blogging platform. So,
And so you started.
So how does, like, to sign up for it, they just search your name and Substack and
they can search my name,
I just Googled
Yep,
Hold My
or
Chalice.
just search Hold My Chalice Substack. Really easy to find.
we popped it in there. We popped it in the chat. So if you
Absolutely.
And Allison just got here. Allison Faber just joined us. Hey.
Yeah, so I started this Substack because in 2022, as I was winding down toward a self-funded sabbatical, which I'm so glad I was able to take, I'm having conversations with colleagues and religious professionals, and things were getting under my skin, and oh, this is terrible. I can't believe this is happening. I should write about that. I should write about that. I kept saying that. And eventually it was, oh, maybe I should actually write about these things. And my conversation with the Reverend Oscar Sinclair, who's now at Unity in St. Paul, he said, oh my God, hold it, Kimberly's going in, hold her beer. And I'm like, no, hold my child. And a name was born. And so I had about 40 prompts, things I wanted to write about congregational life, about how boards work, about greeting, about worship. I started writing in the beginning of January of 2023, and people responded. And I started telling me stories. Oh, I wish you would write about this, or oh, I can't believe this thing just happened. So I would write about them. And I had learned a lot about agility during the pandemic. Like, my ministry didn't go the direction I thought it was going to during the pandemic, but I was like, okay, got to listen to who's out there, what's going on. There's still about 20 prompts on my list that I haven't gotten to because of congregational shenanigans. TM. Lisa Bobby Kemper put the TM on it at a meeting last week. And I'm like, yup.
Right.
But it's been in this incredible journey of recognizing that these things I write about, people are saying, people are dealing with, and often they feel alone. Board presidents feel alone. Am I the only one dealing with, cranky leaders? Am I the only one struggling with these problems of governance? Worship leaders, how do I change the culture? Why am I getting all these complaints? What does it mean to be not a dude in a congregational space? How are we treating one another? And people feel alone. And so I think part of what I do is help people not feel so alone. They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones struggling with the guy who thinks he knows more than the minister, or knows more than the UUA about contracts. He's not alone. They're not alone in the, in receiving the criticism that's supposed to help you and is really unsolicited and, a struggle. And not alone in all of the, people desperate to bring back the thing we stopped doing in worship 20 years ago because they're anxious, right? I mean,
don't you touch Joys and Sorrows.
Oh my God.
Don't you leave our
we have
candles
to have
alone.
a congregational talk back again. I know.
Oh God.
Right?
Yeah, I'll go to bat for Joys and Sorrows, but congregational talk.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Oh, hell no.
It's amazing, right? And so here is also where I get to be my snarky self and just lay it out there.
You get paid to be sarcastic. How the hell did you find
that? But what's interesting is I do it I do it in part because I love our congregations. I love our people. And I see the potential for us to do better and be together better. So I try and offer some solutions or point toward things to think about, talk about. Sometimes they're a little more instructive. My piece at the beginning of the year about the difference between congregational boards and other kinds of boards, is now, I've gotten so many messages bringing this to the board this week, doing a retreat around this, and I think sometimes what I write addresses a bigger need that people didn't even realize. And I keep listening. My piece last week on appropriateness and, comments and touch, and talking about a colleague whose husband was referred to as a hot Santa in 2024.
To the colleague.
Hey, yeah. Said to our colleague, boy, your husband is one hot Santa.
If you did that while working in an office, you'd be talking to HR while other people were packing up your desk.
That's right. And this is that thing that I learned really early on in my ministry, is that we think people are going to behave in church the way that they behave in the workplace, but they actually behave in church the way they behave with their families.
Right.
And I think we do that because we're at work. Right. This is the workplace.
That's right.
And because we invite that a lot of time. We talk about the church system as family systems, quite often as a metaphor, people. As a metaphor.
That's right.
It's a metaphor.
Metaphor.
Don't come in with your slippers, for God's sake.
Or do, but don't be the racist uncle.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Like, we're fine with slippers and bonnets, just don't make it weird, right? and or even, so I think that's one of the things I know I struggle with is I do think of church family, and I do talk about church family, and I always try and preface it with metaphor. Like what I am talking about is because lots of people have lots of different experience with family, and we know that. We know that, for some folks, you talk about family, oh my God, that isn't a comforting thing. That's like the worst thing that you could be. What are you talking about? I don't want to come with. If I wanted to be with my family, I wouldn't come here. So,
Nicole's got a good point. Maybe they shouldn't treat their families like that either.
Just saying.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. But it's also interesting because there's that sense of comfort and I'm home here, right? And so weirdly, what I see is sort of a class thing that shows up. So we have evidence that churches that serve primarily blue collar, lower class people, they have uniforms, or they have physically dirty work, and they come to church dressed up. They bring their Sunday best. They bring their best selves to church. White collar, particularly executives, have to be in a suit and tie or heels and stockings, so they get to bring their authentic self. So they show up in the tie-dye and the cargo shorts and the Birks and their hair down and all the things.
And the socks.
And the socks. I know. And the socks. But they also leave behind their sense of decorum. So they're not just bringing their authentic physical selves. They're bringing their authentic assholes.
Right. They're bringing the version of themselves that'll watch a ball game on the couch in their underwear.
So
Right, which is really not appropriate for
So
church.
I want to go
Thank you.
back to what Nicole said, which is maybe they shouldn't treat their family members like that either.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we don't need you on the couch at the church in your underwear. That's fine.
Right.
But please do that at home if it makes you feel comfortable. But that's like a matter of consent.
Right.
What I'm thinking about is like yesterday's column about unsolicited advice.
Mhm.
Right? That
Yes.
unsolicited advice is always criticism. And that's
Always.
as true in our home as it is in our
That's absolutely true.
church.
Yep.
Right? And that advice without consent is criticism.
Yep.
And how do we build the consent culture in our families too?
Mhm.
Like, how do we not model the church culture after the least healthy parts of
Right.
our family?
And I think there's a gap, and you're surfacing something that I'm going to write about because, that list that I've got that's miles long, that'll wait. But you're surfacing something about how what we do in our congregations is supposed to prepare us and train us and give us space to learn and grow for how to be a human being outside of that sacred hour.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, I think people compartmentalize that. Oh, I have to be on my best behavior here. Or I have to. And wouldn't that be nice to say
Start.
Right. And wouldn't that be nice? And then how do we get that? Like maybe you need to think about not just the system in this building, but the system in your family, the system in your group of intimates, your friends, your neighbors.
I had one of my very first jobs in construction. It was this big site, a bunch of people everywhere. My hard hat was brand spanking new, shiny white. Didn't have any stickers, didn't have any scratches, didn't have nothing. And the foreman comes over to me partway through the first morning, and he says, "How's it going? They treating you like family?" And I said, "Oh, no. And he got very concerned. I'm like, much nicer than that.
That's amazing.
Which is humorous, but
True.
actually
Yeah.
true.
No, absolutely.
Nobody's hit me yet today. I think it's a great job.
Yeah. And so I think some of our work just has to be, how are we treating the person next to you at any moment, whether it's on the metro. Yes, I'm in DC, by the way. So side note, I often find myself when I talk about DC, I have to say DC the place, not the person, or DC the person, not the place. So that's the second part of your name, DC.
Right.
DC the person. But I don't even know where I was going with all that.
I wonder if I've got time to change the paperwork at court. Probably not.
But it's, whether it's somebody on the metro or the barista you're getting coffee from, or your cousin who you haven't talked to in a while, or
the janitor in your building.
Yep.
Do you know that person?
Do you know their
Do you know their name?
That's a whole other.
Do you know if they've got kids?
Right. And the person sitting next to you or giving you this beautiful song or preaching this amazing, hopefully life-changing sermon, Yeah.
Yes. Aren't they all?
So
100% of them, DC.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my word.
But it's been amazing. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you do a really great job of curating your stuff. Right? You post the shiny stuff, right? And in the course of this search season, what I've learned is that search teams will go look through wherever you show up on a YouTube thing, no matter what kind of day you were having that day.
Real.
And they will watch your sermon. So you can't curate that anymore and just send them the 3 or 4 really shiny whiz bang ones. Oh, no. So they've seen you the day
They've
that,
set up
you know,
Google alerts for you. Yeah.
Jesus.
It's real. It's real. You know, and I look back at some of the recorded sermons on YouTube and I type in my own name and I'm like, oh, can we get rid of that? Because that was not good. That was
Yeah, I've changed my entire theology from that day.
Oh my gosh, for real. I'm literally writing down more ideas.
I remember, and it was right after Newtown. Yep. Right after the Newtown shooting, I wrote a sermon that won some fancy ass prize. I don't remember what the name of the prize was, but I got a bunch of money for it. And I look at that sermon today. It was one of those $1,000 sermons, right? You preach it enough and it eventually makes you $1,000. I look at it today and I'm like, I was way too conciliatory in that thing.
Yeah.
I was way too generous. I have got way fewer fucks to give now than I did back then.
Yes. No, for real.
So, you know, and it was a really lovely sermon, and I would not preach it again.
No.
You know, I have gone from reach out to your neighbor, even the ones you don't know and don't like, to you are not obligated to comfort the person who wants you dead.
Yeah.
Hello.
For real. Yep.
Right?
Yep. Real.
When there was the Tree of Life shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh, there was a rally, and I was at the rally down in Atlantic City with a bunch of other folks, and people were like, we need to meet our neighbors. We need to. And I said, no, you don't. You're not obligated to seek out somebody who wants to harm you. Your first job is to protect yourself and your family. And be a nice, like, don't be a dick, right? But keep yourself safe and give yourself room to grow and thrive. You are not required to be nice to your oppressor.
I mean, that's that Baldwin quote.
And like everything has shifted, and I was,
I think people hear a theology centered in love and think that's what we're saying.
Right.
And, you know, nowhere in that saying says that we need to give comfort and succor to folks who, you know, intend us harm. What we're saying is that their humanity can be affirmed as we do everything in our power to dismantle the systems that they're upholding and that they are, you know, putting forth. That doesn't mean that I have to be nice to them. It doesn't mean that I have to be really even kind to them. It just means that I have to recognize that they are another human being.
Yeah.
Right? And that I can't just say, oh, they're other and therefore they are worthless. Yeah. That's not.
Yeah, this is that Baldwin quote. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my right to exist.
Yeah, it's just not. And so, you know, I think, you know, getting down that false flag and putting that straw, that straw person outside so that we don't have to deal with that anymore and we can actually talk about the real issues in our congregations is really important, is to just like, no, we're not going to play that game anymore, right? Because it was a game that took up a lot of time and it took up a lot of energy, and that's what we needed, but we're not doing it anymore. Like,
no,
the progressive left in the United States started moving right with Jimmy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm not even talking about the U.S. I'm talking about UUs. I mean, I'm talking about, you know, when was the last time that we even really talked about, you know, the UUs that were causing so much angst in our system, you know, just 2-3 years ago. We just don't talk about it anymore because we've affirmed that they are and, you know, bless them in their humanness, but fuck them. And I'm perfectly willing to just like move on and do the work that we need to do.
That's right.
And we had the conversation, and the conversation was very clear about where we came out on the side of love, and what our work is to do, what our theology mandates us to do. So if other people have other ideas and they want to discuss that, and they want to, try and hold the entire, go for it.
Back in,
but where have they moved the needle? Where has the needle been moved? The needle has been moved
to the right.
Liberation.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. That's what we need to focus on. If
So
we do that in Unitarian Universalism, we need to be able to replicate that elsewhere. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying the work is done. Don't get it twisted. But I am saying, some of the recent votes that we had to have because of this was overwhelmingly clear, 90% clear that we have the mandate that we have, and we need to move.
That's right.
Yeah. And we still needed to brutalize our people to get that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I remember in early 2017, there was that awful article in the Times that we have to be nice.
Yep.
And that got me on fire. So the fire started early because I wrote that article about niceness and kindness. That kindness isn't always nice, because nice rolls over.
Nice is a doormat.
We spent too long being nice, playing nice. And that's part of why the needle moved. Okay, we'll be nice. We'll give in a little bit.
And we did that. As my old French meme would say, you might as well strap a mattress to your back and give curb service for what you're doing.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, you just keep giving and giving and giving and debasing yourself and debasing yourself, and you're debasing yourself in pursuit of what?
Right.
In pursuit of stopping the tension, because that makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, how much debasement are you willing to take?
Right.
To like not care about somebody else's discomfort. That's not cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's an organization called Better Angels, which is intended to help people have conversations, and handful of the members of the congregation I work with part-time have been working on Better Angels in a fairly red county in Maryland. And one of them confessed to me, she said, I think we're done, because these conversations we've wanted to have, they're all like, we won, fuck you. And she's like, how do you come in good faith to even have those conversations? She's like, it was all for naught.
Yeah, didn't matter. Better Angels is, if y'all are out there doing Better Angels,
more power to you.
More power to you. That has been tried to come into so many areas, and it is, in my opinion, like the least common denominator kind of conversations, like that just go nowhere. And if you are not willing to have a conversation about basic human rights, then why am I taking my time to have that conversation with you? Like, maybe somebody else wants to, but that is not a conversation that is going to move people. And if we can't even agree on affirming immigrant rights and trans rights and a woman's right to choose, I'm sorry. We have fundamental value differences in which maybe somebody else is willing to walk you through, but I'm trying to get people fed and trying to get people, to be able to have safe access to abortion And I'm trying to make sure that, trans people who want to get out of a specific area have a place to go to.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I think and then it becomes frustrating to me to realize that we have people in our congregations who, if we were outside, we wouldn't have, we wouldn't be having the conversation because they don't believe that. You were referenced some of the votes last year.
Yeah.
Holy crap. How is that possible with what we preach, what we value, who we say we are, and who we've been for generations?
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Yeah.
And I think that, the good that I will say that came out of that, and believe me, I know firsthand the pain and harm from that entire exercise, which, I'm sure some people think is still going on in their minds. But I think the thing that it helped people recognize in a really hard way is that is us. Like it is the worst version of us, and it exists within Unitarian Universalism just like it exists anywhere else, because we are not exceptional. We are not, somehow more divine or somehow above.
We are infuriatingly human.
Yeah, and so I think that was the point that I thought, well, okay, at least we're having that conversation, right? At least we're able to. I think it was like white people were holding up a mirror that Black and brown people had been trying to hold up to Unitarian Universalism for a really long time, and people were like, no, that's not us. And then white people held up that same mirror, and they're like, oh shit, it really is.
Right? Yes.
Man,
yes.
You can't say it's those problem children, problem-making people. It really is. It really is us.
Why do you want to upset everything?
Right. Well, one thing before I have to ask, I know this conversation could go on, but absolutely. I would love for Michael Tino and Reverend Kimberley to talk about the Debus point in Facebook posts.
Yes.
Okay. So it begins on, I think the date winds up being like May 5th or something.
2014.
I think it was
2014.
Was it? You've got the date saved in your calendar, don't you?
Well, I remember it happening when I was living in Oakland, so that's the only time that happened.
That's right. So yeah, 2015. And I was just up to here with post after post, the longer ones, right? Somebody asks a question and people add some things, or somebody asserts something. And then partway down the thing, it's as though they don't even read the comments and they start repeating. And it's like, I said that 3 hours ago.
Read the goddamn thread.
Read the goddamn thread. Yes. So, and if you'll bear with me a moment, I'm actually going to pull up the post because it was pretty funny.
That's why I asked the question, because
I know.
On a need-to-know basis, our viewers
absolutely.
So, shoot, how do I get to it? I hate Facebook search. Well, you know what? I should look it up on the other site. So basically, I bitched about it in a post. And what I said was, there needs to be a word for the moment in an online conversation when people stop reading the comments above and thus repeat them, annoying the original poster and everyone who commented before. And somebody said, oh, we should call it like the Debus point. And then they continued to Debus point in post after post. Oh, I don't know. I have a better name. Why not the Debus Point? It was ridiculous. And of
Point
course,
is the Debus Point.
and of course, people like Christian Schmidt and
Right.
DC, when Michael were among the contributors to this. Oh, and Jude Guy,
I have no
great.
idea what she's talking about.
And it goes on, and it goes on, and I'm like, you guys are killing me. And then he kept mentioning it, and over time, somebody would do that. Oh, we reached the Debus Point. And then I get a package in the mail, I don't know, a month or two after that. And it's a mug from Urban Dictionary with the Debus Point text on it, where a certain Mikey T908 had added it to the Urban Dictionary. Meanwhile, my nephew, who is a computer geek living right now in San Jose, has his own life, is like, what is this thing? And why is our name on it? I explained it to him, and he's like, oh, that's so useful. So his friends use it too.
It's totally useful. I use it all the time in non-UU settings, and people know it now. Like
It's on Wikipedia too, isn't it?
Well,
It's in Open Dictionary. It's
Okay.
officially
I don't know if it's in Wikipedia.
as of May 31st, 2018.
yeah, we put the link for you all who are listening to this. If you're in your car or you get back home and you want to look it up, the Urban Dictionary link is in the chat. And I encourage you to use the Debus Point, especially in groups where those long posts come on, and and people just start repeating. A whole new group of people just start repeating what the previous group of people have already said. It's hilarious, brilliant.
God bless them if they aren't almost always some version of retired colleague.
And so before we either start saying the same things over and over again, or
we reached the Debus Point here.
I will note that it is 1:02 p.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. 2:02 p.m. I believe in Oregon, and it is time for us to bid you adieu for the week. We will be back next week with some sort of mess that will cook up, and we really, really have loved the chat. And thank you, Kimberly.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Always my pleasure.
So great to see you.
Good to see you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.